Forum for Minnetrista Mayor and City Council. I'm Deborah Price, President of the Wayzata Plymouth Area League of Women Voters. The City of Minnetrista will have 3 positions on the ballot during the November general election. 2 City Council members at-large positions with a 4-year term beginning January 2015 and ending December 2018. 1 mayor at-large position to fill the remaining portion of the vacated mayoral term beginning January 2015 and ending December 2016. Tonight's forum will include 2 candidates for mayor and 4 candidates for the 2 at-large positions. All candidates were invited. Sherry Strum has declined to attend. And this afternoon, Arlene Donahue called to say she was ill and was unable to attend. This forum is made possible with the financial support of the Minnesota League of Women Voters Education Fund. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan, volunteer organization organized at the local, state, and national level to educate and encourage citizens to participate in government. While we at League do study and take stands on issues, we never endorse or support political parties or candidates. We do encourage our members as individuals, as we encourage each of you to become involved in your community and the political party of your choice. If you would like to have an impact on local, state, and national issues, please pick up our membership material available tonight or visit lwvmn.org for more information about the League of Women Voters. We welcome your membership or your donations. Tonight's moderator is Patricia Robles, a League of Women Voter member from Plymouth. Patricia?
Thank you, Debbie. Good evening. I'm Patricia Robles, a member of the League of Women Voters Wayzata Plymouth area and your moderator this evening. This forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters Wayzata Plymouth area, and on behalf of the League of Women Voters, I welcome you. The purpose of this evening's forum is to provide you the opportunity to hear the candidates discuss face-to-face the issues that are important to you. The views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates, not those of the League of Women Voters, and the sponsorship of this debate is not an endorsement of any candidate. The League of Women Voters does not support or endorse support or oppose any candidate or political parties. All viable candidates have been invited. The rules for this evening's forum are as follows. Each candidate will be allowed an opening statement with a maximum of 2 minutes to state his or her experience, platform, and objectives. A 15-second warning will be given before the total time has elapsed. Candidates, please finish your sentences quickly when you see the stop sign or you will be interrupted. Opening statements will be given in alphabetical order and the questions shall be answered in rotating order. The answers will be confined to 1 minute. No reference of a personal nature will be tolerated. A person's public record may be examined, but not their character. These forums are made available to encourage the voting public to focus on the issues. We ask that there be no demonstrations such as applause or booing of support or opposition to the candidates or their positions, and that all candidates be allowed their full time to get their point across. We will thank the candidates with applause at the end of the evening. Tonight, I'd like to introduce the Minnetrista mayoral candidates, Mark Vander Linde and Lisa Wayland. Mark, did I get that correct?
Yep, sure did.
All candidates were invited. Sherry Strum has declined to attend. The candidates here tonight, I already said that. We will begin tonight's forum by calling on Mark Vander Linde to give his opening statement. Lisa Wayland, your opening statement will be second. Mark?
I'd like to wish my opponent good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll try and make this brief. First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity.
Could you pull the mic up to your mouth so we can hear you?
Oh, sorry. I'd like to thank the League of Women's Voters for this opportunity. I've served on the city council for 6 years. I've served on 2 separate councils that were very different. For the first 2 years, I had served on the council, but my opponent was on that same council. And my feelings are it was kind of a reactive council. Current council has been very proactive and with some city issues. And these are some examples. Our roads back then were terrible. I mean, one year we spent $13,000 on gravel for 23 miles of road. At that rate, it would have took 18 years to gravel our roads. That's unacceptable. We had no pavement management plan in place. We do today. We're funding it. We've rated all our roads. We know what they need. We're continuing to improve those. Planning is a real issue in this city. One good example of poor planning was Red Oak Golf Course. The previous council put a 5 unit per acre density on that property. And it was mind-boggling. Why would anybody do that? And that's why I voted against it. Drinking water. Drinking water has been a problem in this city for years. People have been complaining about it. It's nothing new. The previous council, for some reason, just ignored it. This council listened to our residents, and we're in the middle of having a water treatment plant designed. Stormwater. We've identified 10 different stormwater issues. We're working with FEMA and Minnehaha Creek Watershed District to get these funding. And while doing all this, we've been able to lower our city taxes by 16%. We did a lot with a lot less. And that's why I want to make sure that the city doesn't go back to our old ways. I want to make sure that we continue to go in upward direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa.
Well, good evening. My name is Lisa Whalen, and I'm running for mayor. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this event tonight, and also for all of you coming out and showing an interest in the local issues and the local election. My husband and I have resided in Minnetrista for 29 years. We have 2 grown children. Our son is married, and we have 2 grandchildren. I'm an interior designer, and I'm a former small business owner. I owned and operated my business for 25 years. I think my thing just went out. I'm not currently on the council, but I do have a lot of past council experience. I served on the council from January of 1999 through December of 2010. I also have leadership experience. I served on the LMCB for 3 years as their chair, and I also served for 12 years as a chair for the Pioneer-Sierra Creek Watershed Commission. The reason I'm running is because I'm concerned about recent events and certain issues that have come up at City Hall. I want to bring ethical common sense back to the City Council. When I was on the council, we did many things. We did have a water infrastructure plan in place. But, I want to talk about the future. We need leaders that have vision and that can do long-term planning. And we do need to address our infrastructure, but it goes beyond just roads. We need to address the infrastructure for water, infrastructure of parks, streets, trails, sidewalks. All of these things are part of our infrastructure that we do need to address. I hope I have the opportunity to address all of these issues in a little more depth tonight, because I know there's been some allegations by my opponent, and they're simply not true. Thank you very much.
Now we will start the questions. You will be given 1 minute to answer. First question goes to Lisa. How will you balance development with open spaces in Minnetrista?
Well, first of all, when I was on the council, we approved about 6 or 7, maybe even more developments, rather large developments at that. And currently there's what's called a MUSA line. That's called the Metropolitan Urban Service Line, and the city is not allowed to develop and densely develop beyond that line. I would say we should stick to the comprehensive plan, but then besides that, we also need to implement what's called LID, or low impact development strategies. With these strategies, we can protect natural resources, our trees, our wetlands, our other natural amenities that we have. We did that for the developments that we did put in Hunter's Crest, Turtle Creek, for instance, North Saunders. These are all developments that we were able to save trees, protect wetlands, and provide beautiful developments that do fit in nicely with the rural character of Minnetrista. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark?
When it comes to the development, I know there's been a lot of talk about Med Council, and it is true they do dictate a lot what we do, but we still do have a choice on where it goes. And personally, I don't want to encourage more development than we have to. I want to manage what we have. I want good development. I want to make sure that we have good developments, we have good neighborhoods, and we've got a unique city here. We've got a lot of parks. I mean, Three Rivers Park District is, we've probably got the most parks out of any city in the 7-county metro area. And we need to use those. We need to share them with our residents. And I think that's going to be the big key, is to not just be plopping developments in that are, 5 units an acre type stuff. We need to really look at how we develop, where do we develop, and don't plan for tomorrow. Plan for 10, 20, 30 years down the road to see what this city is going to look like at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, we'll start with Mark. Give an example of how you have facilitated consensus when parties have different opinions.
That's an interesting one. One thing that I have learned over the years is everybody has an opinion. It's not saying there's my opponent or your opponent or whoever you're talking to is wrong. And you have to keep that in mind, that everybody has an opinion. You have to respect that. And I think that I do that. I listen to people. We do have usually good conversations. But I don't attack people. Like I say, everybody's got their opinion, and sometimes you can learn something from somebody else's opinion by just listening to them. I'm not a person that knows everything. I've learned a lot from other people, over the years, and I think it's a big thing is to listen to people and respect them. Thank you.
Lisa?
Well, I'll give you an example. When I was the chair for the LMCD, when I first came on board, I wanted to reach out to a number of different groups and organizations. One of those groups had little differing opinions about the Lake Minnetonka Conservation District, the LMCD. It was the marina owners. So I reached out to one of the marina owners and I asked if he would be willing to meet with me and talk with me and tell me about their issues and their concerns and what the differences were between what they wanted and what the LMCD wanted. Subsequently, he introduced me to all of the other marina owners on the lake. And after about a year of working with them and listening to them and reaching out to them, we actually had a meeting where all of the marina owners came to our meeting and wanted to thank us for working with them and being cooperative with them. That's just one example. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. The next question will be, Lisa will have the first question. Why do we not charge non-residents on the lake a charge or a fee to use the lake?
Okay, could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Why do we not charge non-residents on the lake a charge or a fee to use the lake?
According to state statute, Minnesota lakes, the surface water is public. It's not private. And a lot of people feel very strongly that we need to keep the waters public. And by charging a fee to enter or go onto the lake, it's felt that these are user fees that are not appropriate because it's already public land or they're public. The city doesn't have an ordinance in place for user fees. There's also been talk about user fees for gates and closing the lake and things like that. I'm a strong proponent for keeping our public lands and our public lakes open to the public at no cost if that's at all possible. Their fees come through, the user fees come through our boat fees and other gas tax and things like that. So I'm not a proponent for charging fees to the public to use the lake.
Mark?
This one's pretty simple. Waters are public. I mean, I understand that there is if you go to Three Rivers Park District, there is a fee for launching, and that basically covers the maintenance of keeping our parks up. If you started doing that, if you started charging for going on the water, where would it end? You'd have to charge for our city parks. Three Rivers District doesn't charge for their parks because it does come out of our taxpayer. And that's one thing I think that needs to be. You can't eliminate people from other cities for using the water, using your parks. And I think if you started doing that, I think you'd open a can of worms. I think that would be kind of a scary road to go down. So I wouldn't even imagine that we would ever want to do that. So,
Thank you. Mark, I understand water is a big issue in this area, and so we have several questions on water, and I'm going to start with this one. The water plant, why would it be located in basically a 10-acre property area around farms and not be connected to city water, rather than near more populated and accessible for connection to city water?
repeat that again. I didn't catch part of it about not being connected with city water.
Why would it be located in a 10-acre property area around farms and not be connected to city water, rather than near a more populated and accessible making it more accessible for connection to city water?
Okay, I think I know what. Basically, if you have a central plant, you want it located centrally, and it's planned in this area on the campus, that land that we already own. You don't want to put it on the east part of the city because someday the western part will grow. So I think for planning purposes, you want to have it centrally located. It will be connected with city water, so I'm kind of at a loss at that. But, I mean, that's the whole purpose of it. But, yeah, you wouldn't want to, and the land availability. I mean, anywhere east of here, it's pretty tough to find 10 acres that is connected to city water. And I think it's a good place for maintenance-wise, too. We've got our Public Works Department right here. If there's any issues, it's very accessible. So I think it's a good spot for it. And we also have extra land for expansion.
Thank you. Lisa?
Well, yes, the new facility, the water treatment facility, would be connected to city water. That's why it's being built. I'm not so certain that the location is a great location. It really is going to be right in the middle or on actual park property. And I think we need to have a vision of what this campus here is going to look like. And that's where long-term planning would come into, or visioning would come into play. How is this large plant going to fit into the landscape of the current area, and how is it going to play out in the long term? How are we going to plan the parks around it? How are we going to plan other facilities? We did buy the land around City Hall for the purpose of something like this, but the actual location wasn't determined, and I think you have to do that in conjunction with parks and trails and everything else that you plan for this campus.
Thank you. This next question is also about water. I'm going to start with Lisa. At what point will you require the residents on well water to start having to pay for the city water expenses?
I don't plan on that. I don't think that would be fair. The current plan is that the existing users, along with more development and more housing, are to pay for it. I would have to make sure that we are revisiting that plan on a monthly and quarterly basis to make sure that projections are being hit, because I am concerned. I am very concerned that this is it's a over 16, possibly $18 million project, and this is a huge project for 1,100 users. We need to hit those marks. Housing, they're guesstimating around 75 to 90 homes a year, plus a lot of acreage coming in for development. So I'm not in favor of making our residents that are in well water pay for this plant. That just is not a viable option.
Thank you, Mark.
Can I just say ditto? because that's how I feel. Yeah, I mean, it's come up that, the people on well are going to pay for this. Well, the one problem with that, this is going to be paid for by revenue bonds, hence the name revenue. This debt cannot be paid back by general funds. It has to be paid through revenue. Revenue is done, revenue bonds are used for like toll roads, sewer projects, water treatment where there is a revenue. So by law, you can't pay for it with general funds. And I would never imagine that anybody would think that we would make people pay for it. I mean, I'm not really sure why we would do that. And I agree. Our finance director has done the calculations. He based it on 75 new permits a year. We're over 80 already. So I don't think we'll have a problem hitting that mark. So no, I would never even dream about trying to make well users pay for this system. Thanks.
Thank you. And Mark, you'll get this question first. With recent distrust between council and citizens, what will you do to rebuild that trust?
Be honest. I think that's a big thing that hasn't happened in a while. We haven't been honest with our residents. I've been out talking with people, and people have heard a lot of things that bother me. I've got a very long history of family in this city. And I think if our founders looked at what's happening in this city, I think they'd be ashamed. But I think the main thing is we have to talk to each other. We have to explain what's really happening and quit relying on rumors, because that's what's happening. People are starting rumors. They get spread. As they go, they get worse. All that should happen is people should get the true facts and make that decision for themselves. And I think that would be the big thing, is the transparency end of it, is make sure people understand. I mean, we've got a good system now. We've got cameras on YouTube, so thank you.
I might have jumped the gun on that a bit.
No, that's all right. That's right.
Seconds. Do you want a few more seconds to wrap up?
No, I was just going to say we have our cameras in-house now, and they're on YouTube, and I think that's a great thing for people to have access to our meetings.
All right, thank you. Sorry about that. Lisa?
Could you, I'm sorry.
Sure, I'll
ask
ask
the
the
question.
question.
Thank you.
With recent distrust between council and citizens, what will you do to rebuild the trust?
First of all, I'm not sure that there's a lot of rumors. I know that there's been articles in the paper done by reporters that have investigated issues. Number one, I would work hard. Number two, I would be honest. I was before, and I will continue to be that. I would be ethical. And besides, yes, transparency is a must. But transparency goes beyond just having your meetings videotaped. It goes into the process by which you arrive at a decision. This is part of the ethical conduct that we need to follow. We need to make sure that we're not emailing behind closed doors, phone calling, and doing business behind closed doors. City business needs to happen here in the city chambers. We need to make it public. The public needs to know what decisions were made, how they were made, and why we arrived at the decisions that we did. There's a lot of tools in the toolbox that we can use to be transparent. Videoing the meetings is one. Thank you.
Lisa, this first question is for you. Could you provide examples of how you have worked or you will work with neighboring communities and how you would approach those relationships if you were to become mayor?
Yeah. When I was on the council, we used to have, when I first came on, frequently we had like quarterly or sometimes twice a year council meetings, joint council meetings with St. Bonifacius. That's one thing that we did. The other thing, though, is I know a lot of the mayors and council members from adjoining cities, and I have a good rapport with them. I know the mayor from Medina. I know the mayor from Orono. I speak with them frequently. I know the mayor from Independence. So I know a lot of the mayors, and I know also council members. And I think that's a really good start, because when you know these people and you have a relationship with them already, it makes it a lot easier to work cooperatively with them. And there'll be new council in Mound, but I would look forward to working with them on a cooperative basis as well. Thank you.
Mark?
Probably a very good example, and I think it's so important to our community to work with surrounding communities. we're doing basically the same job. So why not work together? Probably one of the biggest one was Highland Road. That's something that I heard 6 years ago real strongly from residents, is when is Highland Road going to get fixed? And I think it had been tried for 20 years trying to get together. And finally we put together a committee with St. Bonnie, and St. Bonnie, trust me, was great to work with. I mean, they bent over backwards to work with us. The road turned out beautiful. They went above and beyond what they needed to do. And I think that's the big thing. You have to trust your neighbors. We've worked with Mound. We're talking to them possibly about maybe a more of a connection to the water treatment, kind of more of a community or a regional plant. So that's how.
Thank you. It seems another hot button issue is development and moratorium balancing open development with open spaces in Minnetrista. What is your opinion on the balance between development with open spaces in Minnetrista? And Mark, here first.
Could you repeat it?
What is your views on, and how would you balance development with open spaces in Minnetrista?
It's kind of like one of the previous questions. I think the big thing is managing it. I think I've seen a lot of changes in my lifetime. This area is very different than when I grew up in this area, and it's been good. It hasn't been overwhelming, and I think that's the key. You have to have people that manage it. You can't try and stifle it because it's not going to go away. You look at cities like Victoria, Chanhassen, Eden Prairie. You can't just hope it goes away. It's not going to happen. So you need to manage it. You have to make sure that you're getting the right people. You have to make sure you're getting the right developers. We don't want fly-by-nights in here. We want good developers. And I think that's the key to managing the development. So, thank you.
Lisa?
Well, we need to have controlled growth. We don't want it just spread out all over. And again, like I stated earlier, we want to make sure that we keep it within the current MUSA. And when it comes time to move that line, I think the residents are going to have to, and I would welcome and encourage them all to weigh in to see what their vision is for Minnetrista. We actually need to have a long-term vision, longer than the 10 years. We need to go out 20, 30 years so that we can get a big picture of what we're going to look like. We also need to have people on the council that clearly understand development and understand the rules and understand what we can do to make lovely and beautiful developments that will fit within the city. Again, like I mentioned earlier, we can implement low-impact development strategies. This will give us more open space. This will give us more protection of our natural resources that we have.
Lisa, you're first on this question. Do you support citizens being heard during city council meetings? And how would you ensure citizen input?
Yes, I do support that. I know my opponent would have you believe that I removed citizens to be heard. What I did is I approved a special time frame prior to every single council meeting where people could come and address the council. While I was the chair for the Lake Minnetonka Conservation District, we had a standing agenda item for persons or public forum where persons could address the board. And also during the meetings, as chair, I allowed people to speak on an agenda item if they wanted to give some input. I did the same thing for the Pioneer-Sarah Creek Watershed Commission and always invited people to make comments if they wanted to. But we also have to make sure that the open forum is controlled and is respectful. And we have to set rules and guidelines so that it can happen in a respectful way. And I also want to make sure that we have maybe even more opportunities than we currently have.
Thank you. As a reminder, let's not have any expressions from the audience. Mark, do you support citizens being heard during city council meetings? And how would you support citizen
I've always supported that, and that's what kind of bothered me a little bit. It always was during the meeting, so it was on camera, on tape, so all the residents could see what was happening in the city. So about 5 years ago, when it was taken off the regular meeting, that really bothered me. I mean, that's not transparency. Obviously, I don't know what reason that anybody would have to want to take it off the meeting and basically put it 15 minutes before the meeting at 6:45. So you've only got 15 minutes for, I mean, there could be one person, there could be 20 people. If they've got 3 minutes per person, you got 20 people, it doesn't work out. So I think that really shows the transparency end of it. Why would you take that off? I mean, that was one thing that we finally got put back on, and I think that's great so people can come here, they can voice their opinion, and everybody else in the city that watches that tape knows exactly what happened. So,
Thank you. Mark, you're first on this question. The mayor has additional leadership responsibilities. How would you perform that role? You know what, and I'm going to add a little something else that goes with that. And if you were elected mayor, how many hours a week are you willing to devote to city business?
The second part of the question, I will devote as much as I have to. I'm very fortunate that I've got a job that is pretty flexible. I'm kind of semi-retired. I kind of work when I need to or when I want to. And there is more responsibility, and I take that very seriously. I'm not going to jump into something that I can't handle. I've been in business for 34 years. I understand when you take a job on, and that's what I do for a living. I'm a contractor. I take jobs on. I understand if you take it on, you better be able to do it. Because if you can't fulfill your contract, you will be out of business. And I do not want to end up with a mayor that cannot fill that contract, because basically it is a contract between the residents and the mayor to do what they're supposed to do, their job. And I think I can do it, and I think that's the responsibility of the mayor, is to make sure that there is enough time.
Thank you. Lisa?
Could you repeat it again?
The mayor has additional leadership responsibilities. How would you perform that role? And in addition, if you were elected mayor, how many hours a week are you willing to devote to city business?
Well, first of all, I am retired, and I have no children at home anymore. So I have a lot of free time that I could devote to this, and I would be willing to put in 20, 30, 40 hours, whatever it would take to be a successful mayor. One of the things that I like to do, or as I did with the chair for the LMCD as well as for the Pioneer-Sarah Creek, is I build consensus. That's one of the leadership styles that I have. I like to involve all of the council, even if they're of opposing opinions. But getting everybody's opinion is one thing that, as chair, I would do. I would follow a due process. In other words, I would make sure that the council is open and transparent, and that we have a process that we're following so that the public can see what we're doing at all times.
Thank you. Lisa, you're first on this question. Could you please describe how your background would be beneficial in prioritizing infrastructure investments?
Well, when I was an interior designer and owner of my own business, what I would do is I would create what's called a master plan for my clients. And this is something that they could implement in phases as their funds would afford them to do that. I think this is very similar to what we need for our city. We need long-term infrastructure and long-term financial plans. When I was on the council previously, we did have long-term plans. We had a financial plan, and this spelled out when and how we could afford to do infrastructure plans such as the water treatment facility. The water treatment facility was spelled out in our water plan and for approximately 2014, 2015. And then the financial plan, which mirrors or which also kind of overlaps that, tells you how and when you can do those plans, when you can implement them. And they would be implemented in phases, obviously not all at once. Sometimes it may take a while, but eventually we would get there.
Thank you. Mark?
Could you repeat it, please?
Sure. Could you please describe how your background would be beneficial in prioritizing infrastructure investments?
Well, As an excavation contractor, infrastructure is my job. It is my line of work. Equipment is my line of work. Financing is my line of work. So that part I do understand very well. Like I say, 34 years of running equipment, you understand the financial end of it. There's certain things that when you do make investments on equipment, infrastructure, you have to spread it out over years. I know I look back in our financial plan. In '03, basically, we replaced just about every piece of equipment we have in the Public Works Department. If I did that, my accountant would ask me if I had lost my mind. I mean, that's not what you do. You spread them out over years. You get life cycle of your equipment, of your infrastructure. You make sure your costs are covered. And like I say, I've got a very good background in infrastructure, and I think I've got the financial end of it. Like I say, being in business as long as I have, I get, if I wouldn't have the financial, I wouldn't have been around for 34 years. Thank you.
Mark, you'll get this question first. This is the second to the last question. You both have been on the city council before. Tell us how you come to the decisions for some of the contentious decisions that have come before the city council, how you have come to the decisions you've come to. What's your process?
Well, first of all, you listen to the residents, because the residents are the city. Everyone that lives in this city, the city belongs to them. And if you're not willing to listen to them, and I mean, the water treatment plant's a perfect example. We collected the information. We got multiple opinions on this, not just one opinion. I mean, people get multiple estimates on when they fix their car, when they go to the doctor. We got multiple engineers to look at this project, and I think that's the key. We put all the information together, and we sent it out to the residents and said, what would you like? It is your city. You will be paying for this. So what do you want? And it came back, and what they wanted is what we did. And I think that's the key, is you need to listen to your residents. If you don't, you will fail.
Thank you. Lisa?
Well, I'll use the public facilities, the Public Works Garage and the Police Department as an example. We studied the issue for many, many years. We invited the public in and held numerous open houses to get their input. We created a Citizens Advisory Committee to get their input and put yet another set of eyes on the issue. We also hired consultants to give us advice and to do research and to do feasibility studies. We also hired a consultant to do a financial analysis. And we also invited the public to come in and do tours of the facilities so that they could give us their feedback and let us know what they thought. Throughout this process, we also did tours of other facilities in other areas. And based on all of this, research, homework, tours, open houses, feedback from the residents, we made a decision to build the Public Works Garage and the police facility. And I might add, we did it for under budget.
Thank you. And this is our final question. Lisa, you'll be first. Is there an issue that has not been discussed tonight that you would like to talk about?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about taxes. Everybody loves to pay taxes, right? No. My opponent would have you believe that I raised taxes 230%. That's not true. So one of the things I'd like to point out is I was on the council for 12 years. I don't think anybody with some common sense would expect a city to deliver the same services 12 years from the time I started, the same city services at the same cost that they were delivered for prior 12 years earlier. In addition to that time, yes, the budget did go up, but we added 2,200 residents to our community. We saw significant growth. We also saw about 6 or 7 new developments come in. That's more infrastructure, it's more people, it's more services that we have to provide. The budget went up, but the levy was then spread out over a larger group of residents and a larger tax base. So your taxes did not go up 230%.
Thank you. Mark?
Well, that is interesting, because those figures actually came from the CAFR reports from our financial director. Our population went up 50%. Our taxes went up roughly, I'll say 220%. We'll cut a little bit off of there. And it bothers me a little bit when you have numbers. The numbers don't lie. They don't lie. They're there. The last 4 years, we've been able to reduce them 16%. So it doesn't always have to go up. I mean, that's a good example. We've done more with less in the last 4 years. Our roads are better. We've addressed our water issues, and I think, just raising taxes all the time isn't the answer. I mean, people want to know where their money's going, and we have to be accountable for it. And that's the people that sit here need to be accountable.
This concludes the Minnetrista Mayor Candidate Forum. We will take a 5-minute break to assemble for the City Council. Thank you. Welcome again. We are now ready to proceed with the Minnetrista City Council candidates. All the rules continue for this forum as well. 2-minute opening statement, 1 minute for questions. We ask that there be no demonstrations such as applause, booing of support or opposition to the candidates or their positions, and that all candidates be allowed their full time to get their point across. We will thank the candidates with applause at the end of the evening. Remember, if you have a question to write, please ask a student for a 3x5 card and raise your hand. They will pick it up. The Minnetrista City Council candidates are present. Well, let me restate that. The Minnetrista candidates are Tyler Abens, Sylvia Allen, Arlene Donahue, Pam Mortensen, and Patricia Thole. Tonight, all are present except for Arlene Donahue. We will begin tonight's forum by calling on Taylor Abens to begin his opening statement. You have 2 minutes, Taylor.
Tyler.
I'm sorry. Tyler. I'm going to remember.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes, I am Tyler Abens. I grew up in the Edina Hopkins area. My family moved out to the Minnetrista area in 2008. I love the rural feel of our city, the open spaces, the exceptional recreational opportunities that we have, and the wonderful community and friendly neighborhoods that we have in our town. So naturally, after I met my wife Stephanie in Idaho and we were figuring out where we wanted to establish a family, we came back here to Minnetrista. We have a lovely 1-year-old daughter back home, hopefully sleeping for her auntie. I work in finance where I help to manage over $450 million in client wealth. A part of that job, a big part of it, is gathering information, analyzing companies and future growth projections, and making the best decisions that I can based off of that available information. My platform is simple. I'm hardworking, open, and honest. I think we need more candor in politics, and what you see here is what you get. There's been a lot of heated political issues over the past several years here in Minnetrista, and I offer a fresh set of eyes for them. I will use my hard work ethic, my experience, to analyze the information, available options, and resident opinions, and then make the best decision, keeping all the residents' opinions in mind so that we get what we want for Minnetrista. I will ensure that there is clear communication between city staff and residents, and I will work hard to preserve the beautiful city that we call home. Thank you.
Sylvia Allen, your opening statement, please.
Thank you, and thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. My name is Sylvia Allen, and this is my second...
We want to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
That's better.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Sylvia Allen, and this is my second time running for City Council. I ran 4 years ago. My husband Gary and I have lived in Minnetrista now for 9 years. I am an executive assistant with United Health Group, and I am also a realtor with Keller Williams in Wayzata. I would like to serve on the council to bring a different mindset, a fresh mindset. This time, I did not accept any campaign funds because I didn't want to be responsible to anyone except the citizens of Minnetrista. So you won't see a lot of my signs around, but I thought this was an opportunity for me to get a chance to meet and and speak with you, and for you to have a chance and an opportunity to meet and discuss issues with me. I have spent 19 years with the University of Minnesota, where there I was an associate administrator, and I was responsible for a $1 million state fund and a $10 million Howard Johnson Endowment Fund. I would like to bring to the City Council my honesty, transparency, communication, and financial oversight. Thank you.
Thank you. Pam Mortensen, your opening statement, please.
I want to start by thanking the League of Women Voters and giving me the opportunity to introduce myself to the voters. Over 30 years ago, my family moved from Fridley to this wonderful little town called Minnetrista. Over those 30 years, 4 of my immediate family members now own homes in Minnetrista. One of them is including myself and my husband Randy, and we have been here for 7 years. We have great passion and community involvement with Minnetrista. My brother, Tim Hales, spearheaded the David Thaler Ice Arena program, or project, and is very active with the community over there. And my son, Corey, is active with the Youth Hockey Association, volunteering his time to be hockey coach, who he is now coaching Pee Wee A hockey, and most of you know him as Coach Corey. 20 years ago, I started my career in the corporate business world. My goal back then was to learn and obtain skills by corporate leaders throughout the industry and take those so one day I would be able to open my own business. I worked for Revlon, L'Oreal, Schumacher, Waverly, and I took and drove business for people such as Regis, Ulta, Dayton, Hudson, Marshall Fields, and Herberger's, to name a few. I obtained the skills and I achieved my goal, and 11 years ago I opened my own business, and it's thriving today. With those corporate giants that I learned those skills from, I learned how to manage business plans, long-term, team leadership, negotiating skills. I will take those skills that I learned from the corporate giants and bring them to the Minnetrista City Council and serve as a great elected official for our city.
Thank you. Patricia Thole, your opening statement, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Patricia Thole. Thank you for coming, and League of Women Voters, thank you for hosting this event. I've lived in Minnetrista for 5 years with my husband, Tim, and although that isn't as long as some of our residents, I believe it allows me to see our city through fresh eyes and with new energy. Tim and I have 4 children, one of who serves in the military, and she is currently on her 3rd tour of duty, this time in Bahrain. What qualifies me to serve as a council member is that I currently serve on Minnetrista's Planning Commission. I show up for that meeting prepared, having read my materials provided by the city staff, and I have driven past every property that will be discussed during that meeting. Additionally, I have 30-plus years of administrative and human resources experience, and I have served in leadership roles in both a business and volunteer capacity. What makes me a unique candidate for council is that for almost the past 2 years now, I have been sitting in on our Minnetrista council meetings and studying the issues. This has also allowed me the opportunity to listen to our residents during the persons to be heard portion of that meeting. Observations that I have made are that we need to restore ethical conduct, and I would also like to bring the divisiveness that exists between some of our residents together. We need to address our city's infrastructure issues in a financially responsible way. This includes our water, roads, storm holding ponds, and culverts. As our city grows, we need to make sure that our police, fire, and public works departments are appropriately staffed and that they've got the equipment that they need to keep us and our children safe. I would like to serve on your behalf as a council member, so I ask that you vote for me, Patricia Thole, on November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we can start the questions. You were given 1 minute to answer. The first question will go to Patricia Thole. Everybody will get the same questions. How will you balance taxes and spending with growth?
Well, balancing taxes and spending with growth. We need our the development that's forecast for our city. We need those residents to come in because those homeowners are going to help pay for our new water treatment facility, and they're going to keep us on target so we don't need to come up with a plan B. As far as our revenue or the taxes, we're in a situation right now where there hasn't been a levy increase for 5 years. And while that's great as a homeowner, who doesn't like when their taxes don't get increased? It creates a situation where there hasn't been money to work on our infrastructure. So I would manage the money that we have to the best of our ability and prioritize those issues that need to be addressed.
Thank you. Pam, the next question, the same question to you. How will you balance taxes and spending with growth?
All successful business begin with a long-term plan. That long-term plan is like a map, a road map. It starts with the starting point, and then you have a destination that you need to reach and follow. That roadmap is going to have detours, just like a business. But in the business world, you call it following the industry trends. When those trends indicate that they are falling down or they're bigger than what they anticipated, those plans need to be adjusted. When those plans are adjusted, you work them through, you get back on that road that you were on the main road, and then you reach that goal and that destination that you set out to achieve. With my business background and working with the giants and the leaders in the industry, I will bring that long-term business plan, and we will get and make that road and reach that destination for Minnetrista.
Thank you. Sylvia?
I would take a look at what the city has done and what the city is doing to balance taxes along with our growth. I would take time to see what is working and see how we can take that to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you. Tyler?
I'm in a good position to answer this question because I just did this process. And this process has two parts, and Mrs. Whalen alluded to this. There is the first part, which is the tax levy that Minnetrista sends out, and the second part, which is the tax to the end user. And so what I did was I created a model with data from Hennepin County on what our end users have paid over the past 6 years, when the levy was flat, when it was increased, when it was decreased. And I figured out kind of how it all works together. And so I plugged in this year's information into that model and figured out that the end taxes to the end user on average will be under 2%. And in my decision-making process, I wouldn't be comfortable going over the inflation rate, basically.
Thank you. The next question, we'll start with Sylvia. What is your plan for attracting and keeping high-caliber city staff with such a small city in a competitive market? And how would you interact with city staff?
Well, transparency, communication. I would communicate with the city staff. I would welcome their ideas. I would, as far as maintaining our high caliber of city staff, I would look at the other cities, what salaries they are being paid, what their positions are, and talk with the residents in Minnetrista to see how we can maintain the caliber that we have now. I think as a city, we have some issues, but we're doing a good job as a city, and I believe that our representatives that we have elected over the last 2 terms have all done a good job. There are areas that can be improved, but basically, Minnetrista, compared to some of the other cities in our state, we're actually doing an excellent job, and we have good people in place. We have good people that want to serve, that want to represent you, and so I would listen to what you have to say.
Tyler, what is your plan for attracting and keeping high-caliber city staff with such a small city in a competitive market, and how would you interact with city staff?
I am very pleased with the caliber of our city staff and working with them and working with Brian on the projections for the water project and working with Brian on he was getting me up to speed on our community development. I'm very pleased with the caliber that we have, and a big part of keeping people is rewarding them, giving them space to be creative in their environment, in their job, and then the things that I look for in bringing in new talent would be competency and people who take responsibility. To those who take responsibility, more opportunities flow to them.
Thank you. Pam? Would you like me to reread that?
Please.
What is your plan for attracting and keeping high-caliber city staff with such a small city in a competitive market, and how would you interact with city staff?
As a director of national accounts and owning my own business for over 30 years, I've learned a really good lesson. And that lesson is that great leaders surround themselves with experts. A great leader admits that they are not experts themselves. When your people that work for you are successful, it shows that you are a positive leader. We need that in the city of Minnetrista. I have seen turnover, and it's sad that we have people of the caliber that you talked about that are leaving the city. We need to keep our city staff engaged. We have to trust their knowledge, and they are experts. They know you, the residents. You come to them with your concerns. That's the process, and I think we need to keep them engaged, active, and they will stay with Minnetrista.
Thank you. Patricia?
Well, since I have 30 plus years of administrative and human resources experience, I know a little bit about this topic. Employees want a nice building to work in, safe, comfortable environment. They want fair pay and opportunities for advancement sometimes. And as our city grows, our city staff may grow accordingly, so there may be some of those. The other component that's very important is respect. And if the person feels respect, they will stay at that company. I mean, there are other components that come into. If they don't feel respected, that is a big reason that they will leave. So we've got any of my interactions with the city staff during the planning commission meetings or anything like that, I've found them to be very responsive. The quality of the information that they provide is very good, so just want to respect them.
Thank you. The next question, we'll start with Pam. What do you think are the infrastructure needs of Minnetrista, and how would you apply your background to weigh options in investments, infrastructure investments?
One of the biggest issues going on with this community for quite some time has been our water issue. The water issue was brought to light to many residents by the recent Star Tribune article and the local newspapers. It was duly noted that there was some unethical issues being done within our current city council, where emails and phone calls were being conducted outside of these city council chambers. City business needs to be conducted within these walls of the city council chambers. We need to have the transparency so the residents are engaged, they know the issues, they can offer options. They are part of the resolution, and with their input, there will be a common sense resolution to the infrastructure issues that we have.
Thank you. Patricia, what do you think are the infrastructure needs of Minnetrista, and how would you apply your background to weigh options in infrastructure investments?
Well, the infrastructure issues are water, roads, stormwater holding ponds, and culverts. The water issue is being addressed. That was in the comprehensive plan for 2015, so we're on target there. The roads, there has been some progress made on the gravel roads, but we need to make progress on the paved roads as well. There's a pavement management plan that has been approved, but now we need to work the plan. We need to make sure that those roads are checked off and that we have the resources to fund those. The stormwater holding ponds, some of them, silt has been being built up in those, so we need to clean those out and then maintain them on a proactive basis. Additionally, our culverts, they're deteriorating, they're collapsing. They've contributed to some flooding that we had during the June rainfall, and so those need to be addressed. A lot of things that need attention, and we need to prioritize them and then make sure we get them done.
Thank you. Sylvia?
Well, first I would look at our most pressing issues. I look at our infrastructure that we have in place. Water is a major issue. All citizens in Minnetrista deserve clean water. That's just a common necessity. We have adults, we have children, we have babies, we have families moving to Minnetrista, and we deserve clean water. If we can't provide that as a city, we should stop development now until we can address this issue and move forward. Our police department, our safety departments, we're in the 21st century. We can't play catch up. We have to stay ahead of the game. As we continue to build, we have new developments coming in. We need to stay ahead of the game so that we can keep our city safe as more citizens, we have more residents moving here to Minnetrista.
Thank you. Tyler? Would you like me to read?
No, I got it. Hey, the easy part of going towards the end is that the issues have already been identified. Parents out there will know one of the lessons that they try and teach their children is it's easier to keep your room clean than let it get messy and then clean it all up. Students know if you procrastinate until the very end, it's very hard to do the work. In the case of a city, it's a lot cheaper and easier to maintain the roads and to establish a road pavement development plan and keep up with the roads than it would be to put all that off until years down the road when all the budget's going to be huge. So for that, we are increasing the road budget, and we're starting to move towards the pavement plan. For the storm, we just had a big wet summer, and so we've identified a lot of problems, and we're working towards fixing those. Those should be done by 2017. And the water, I think everybody knows we're in the process of designing.
Thank you. The next question is then we're going to start with Tyler. What is your position on, since you've already brought up the water issue, and it seems to be an important one here, what is your position on the water treatment situation?
My position is that there are, my position is that we can go ahead with the plan that we have started designing. The projections are about 7% annual increase to the water users. Water users should pay. The people who buy the product from the city should pay for the product, nobody else. 6% is the national average according to an NPR article that I read. And it is because there are a lot of towns like ours that are at the point where they need to start treating their water. Their city has gotten to that point. We do want to try and phase it in as much as possible, but it's cheaper in the long run to go ahead and do the central plant system, even though you have a degree of safety on the growth projections if you do small plant and then rebuild it and then rebuild.
Thank you. Sylvia?
Could you read the question?
What is your position on the water treatment situation?
Well, as I stated before, we all deserve clean water here in Minnetrista. Whether you have well water or city water, we're all affected in one way or another. I do believe that we should review our comprehensive plan for our water treatment plant that we want to build here in Minnetrista, and we want to make sure that we build something that would adequately service the residents that are moving into Minnetrista so that in 10 years we don't have to start all over again or have these issues all over again. So we should work now to make sure that what we're building will work 10, 15, 20 years in the future.
Thank you. Patricia, what is your position on the water treatment situation?
I believe that it's good that our city looked at all of the options. However, I'm not for reverse osmosis. I think that would have been too expensive for our city. And 8 to 10 cities in the state of Minnesota use that. 500 plus use gravity filtration. I am for gravity filtration in a central location. It will be nice if we can keep the cost to the users, and again, that's going to depend on the growth. So although some of the feeling of our residents can be we don't want our city to grow and develop, we need those new residents to come in and help pay for this gravity filtration system. Now the city is working on the water main, the track that's going to take. And for that, my opinion is that I would like us to do the least invasive but cost-effective route.
Thank you. Pam, what is your position on the water treatment situation?
I think a lot of the residents, I know a lot of the residents are very concerned about the financial obligation to this water treatment. We have a right, the citizens that use water in our city have a right to have good, affordable water. This plan that's going on and is happening right now is done on a phase-in process. It's got to be maintained, and the trends have to be watched so that those projected numbers are hit. If they are short numbers or over numbers, adjustments will have to be made to the plan. If the adjustments aren't made, the affordability of this program will be affected. I think that the affordability of this treatment plant needs to be very monitored, and it should not fall on the backs of all Minnetrista taxpayers.
Thank you. The next question, we're going to start with Patricia. With recent distrust between council and citizens, what would you do to rebuild that trust? And how would you ensure citizen input?
Okay, well, those are two different questions, so I'm going to start with citizen input and see if I have time for the other. And with citizens' input, I think that the persons to be heard portion of the city council meetings are important. It provides our citizens an opportunity to express our concerns. I also think that it's important that the guidelines or the rules for that portion of the meeting are followed. I think that 3 minutes is a good amount of time for people to express their opinion and be succinct. And I think that it also, respect, going back to that again, is very important both ways. It's very important for the citizen or the resident who is at the podium to address the mayor and council as such, and it's very important for the mayor and council to be respectful of the citizen who is expressing their concerns.
Thank you. Tyler, with recent distrust between council and citizens, what would you do to rebuild that trust, and how would you ensure citizen input?
With citizen input, I'll start with the second one as well. I agree with Patricia. I actually brought that up in a council meeting when we were just discussing that issue, that people can get everything they want to say in 3 minutes. I mean, we're trying to do it in 1 minute. So I think the rules do need to be followed. I think we've been pretty lax with them. I'd like to see that change. And then with the distrust issue, I haven't really seen a lot of the distrust. I have seen people spreading rumors, and then people answering rumors, and it's a lot of petty politics, and I'm not a fan of petty politics. I like people to speak the facts and to avoid petty politics, and that's why I'm running on a campaign of candor.
Thank you. Pam, with recent distrust between council and citizens, what would you do to rebuild that trust, and how would you ensure citizen input?
It all starts with transparency. The residents have the right to know the issue, to understand it, to know all the options, to voice their concerns, and to help have a common sense resolution. All city business, and I'll say it again, all city business needs to be conducted within these walls. As an elected official, I will make sure that that transparency and all the business is done in that manner. As far as the citizens' input, it is vital that we hear the citizens' opinions so that their concerns can be addressed and the right solution will be resolved for the best for the city of Minnetrista.
Thank you. Sylvia, with recent distrust between council and citizens, what would you do to rebuild that trust, and how will you ensure citizen input?
I would have a revolving door. It's a two-way street. The city government is responsible, and so are the citizens of Minnetrista. I would have an open door policy, come to the city council meetings. When I was on the Minnetrista Park Commission, there were certain issues that citizens had. They would come to our Park Commission meetings. They would discuss their issues. We would listen. We would ask questions. We would go out. We look at different areas of concern, property concerns that our citizens had. And so it's just letting you know that we want to hear your input. We want you to come to the city council meetings. I think that just building that trust again, you elect officials that you trust, and you elect officials that you trust to have a voice for you. And
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next question, we're going to start with Pam. What neighborhood issues are most important to you in this run for city council, and how would you resolve them?
Oh, neighborhood issues. First of all, I want you to know that as an elected city council member, I will always look out for what's best for the city of Minnetrista. I believe in partnership between our neighbors is vital. In today's economy, budgets are tight, and all cities are looking for ways to cut back. Sometimes with the partnership, most of the times with partnerships, solutions are resolved, and it's done within the budgets of all parties. I believe that these solutions can be done with good relationships, but bottom line is whatever is done with the neighbors, it needs to be done with the support of the citizens and make sure that it is done on the best behalf of our Minnetrista.
Thank you. Patricia, what neighborhood issues are most important to you in this run for city council, and how would you resolve them?
As far as neighborhood issues, I don't know of issues within the neighborhoods, but as far as dealing with our neighboring cities, we already have a very good collaborative relationship with St. Bonnie and Mound. We share police, fire, and public works, well, police and fire, and then I've seen our public works departments work collaboratively, again, during the rainfall. Our guys didn't have the equipment that they needed to clear a street drain, and so they called in St. Bonnie. They had some big pump truck, and they were able to clear that drain and prevent some flooding, actually, from the street that I live on. And that's what I have to say on that.
Thank you. Sylvia.
well, I would keep and encourage the relationships we have with our surrounding cities, St. Bonnie being one of them. But then I would also listen to what the citizens of Minnetrista are saying. They are our neighbors. We're all neighbors. And we have issues. I know that you feel like you haven't been heard or that your concerns are not listened to. And so I would just encourage that we have an open communication to hear your concerns, listen to what your needs are, and make sure that you know that we're hearing what your needs are.
Thank you. Tyler?
As you've heard, the neighborhood question can go two ways. Neighboring cities and the neighborhood in Minnetrista. We have a very unique city where we have little pockets of neighborhoods. I don't know if anybody else has gotten that feel, but I know my neighbors very well. But I don't know a lot of the people in Hunter's Crest or Painters Creek extremely well. And so one of the issues that could evolve from this is that certain neighborhoods get neglected. And so we need to ensure that every neighborhood is represented on the council. And as far as working with our neighboring cities, on the water issue, I think that there are a ton of merits to working with the region, so with Mound and other places that are going to need their water treated. It'll be cheaper to work together than separately.
Thank you. The next question, we're going to start with Patricia. State your position on accepting more than $5 gifts from city vendors for both council and city employees to avoid undue influence.
Well, I'm not familiar with that, but it seems as though there would be some restriction on what amount of gift that you should or can accept, so I would follow whatever the law is.
Number 2, Sylvia.
Well, as I stated earlier, you don't see a lot of my campaign signs around because I have not accepted campaign donations this time around, and that's because I don't want to be unduly influenced in any way whatsoever. I don't feel as a council member you should accept gifts at all.
Tyler.
Can you repeat it?
Sure. State your position on accepting more than $5 gifts from city vendors for both council and city employees to avoid undue influence.
I think the rule makes sense that you don't want to be accountable to someone. You want to be sure that you're representative of everybody and you're not giving any vendor undue attention because they gave you a candy bar.
Most corporations have a rule as such, and I don't know why our city council would be any different. That's all I have to say.
So let's get back to some other issues. How will you balance development with open spaces in Minnetrista? Tyler, you're first.
I'll just go back to the sort of pockets of neighborhoods. I actually like that feature of Minnetrista where I'm close to my neighbors. I can walk down the street, or our 1-year-old daughter can walk down the street to watch our neighbors playing football out in their yard. And I like that I can drive less than a block in almost any direction, and I'm in open spaces at a Three Rivers Park. I think that as we develop, we want to keep this rural feel, the open spaces that attracted probably all of us to Minnetrista. And so it's going to be important to push back against the Met Council as they try to keep the developing plans moving out here at more dense levels. We want to say we want to develop for Minnetrista, not for the Met Council.
Pam, how would you balance development with open space in Minnetrista?
All cities have a comprehensive plan, and it has to be followed. That comprehensive plan is revised and updated every 10 years, and it's done with the input of our city staff, the residents, the city council, and outside agencies. Every property owner has property rights. It is the obligation of the city council to maintain the beauty and our standards that we hold high in Minnetrista. I will work with the developers and the outside agencies to maintain those high standards and follow the process and the law.
Thank you. And Sylvia, how would you balance development with open space in Minnetrista?
I would basically do the same thing. I would follow our comprehensive plan. I would make sure that as we have new developments, that there is percentage so that there's a balance between our developments and our open spaces. We don't want to become a Woodbury. It's a wonderful city, but we've moved here for a reason, and that's because of our open land, our open spaces, and we want to make sure we keep that and that we adequately balance that.
Thank you. The next question, we're going to start with Sylvia.
I didn't answer that one.
Oh, I'm sorry, Patricia. I checked you off too early. Where did the question go? Let me reread that. How would you balance development with open spaces in Minnetrista? Sorry about that.
No problem. Well, I think that that's one of the reasons why the residents live here. It's one of the reasons why people are attracted to moving here. And as I mentioned previously, these housing developments, that is going to be critical to helping us fund our water treatment facility. However, we want to do it well. And we can ask them to do custom grading. It's more expensive, but that could retain some of the trees and help those developments blend in a little bit more to our neighboring residents. Also, with those housing developments, they are required to allocate so much space towards park space unless there is another park close by. Then they can buy out that land and build on it. That money then goes into a park reserve fund. I would like to see us use those funds, finish the parks that we have, but also within 5 to 10 years have a large community park where our residents could gather together from the various neighborhoods. Trista Days or other social events could be held there.
The next question, I'm sorry. Sylvia, you're going to be first. And back to the density question. With construction annoyances on Kings Point Road, County Road, I believe that's 110 North, and County Road 151, and the high density of these developments, what's your opinion of where high density should occur? Met Council restrictions and Minnetrista comprehensive plan.
I don't know if I quite understand the question, but how I feel about where high density will occur.
I think the question is asking what's your opinion of where the high density should occur, given the annoyances on the current roads with the infrastructure that's already there.
So as we continue to build, we have the as we build and as we grow, we cannot avoid the noise that comes along with growth and development. There are noise ordinances. I know there are certain times that you can that you have to cease the noise, the building, and so we just have to adhere to those policies and those rules, and we just have to deal with the noise and as the growth is as we're developing. There's really no way around it. We just have to be mindful and respectful of our neighbors as that growth continues.
Thank you. Patricia, would you like me to repeat the question?
Sure.
With the construction annoyances on Kings Point Road, County Road 110 North, and County Road 151, and the high density of these developments, what's your opinion of where high density should occur? Met Council restrictions and Minnetrista comprehensive plan.
Well, as far as any housing development or even just one new house going in a neighborhood, they are required to follow the construction hours from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. to keep that noise down. Now, they can be painting inside after those hours. That's not going to be disrupting anybody, but they need to follow those rules. As far as the Met Council requirements or restrictions are concerned, part of my long-term vision for Minnetrista is that we have reached out to some other cities and gone in as a larger group and gotten them to loosen the reins on those density requirements. And one thing I would like the residents to think about on these, it seems like there is a negative connotation associated with townhouses. We need to keep in mind that what about our residents who are aging? And are there any options for them to stay in Minnetrista if they no longer have the energy to shovel their sidewalk or mow their lawns?
Tyler.
Can you? Well, no, don't worry about it. It's a complex question. Yeah. So the big issue is probably the noise. My sister, they actually live across 6 Mile Creek from the Kings Point development. She actually complained. They're like, oh no, there's going to be noise all summer for my break. But it is something that needs to happen. If someone's going to move out here to Minnetrista, and we want to be inviting to people who move out, there is going to be noise when their house is built. But there are ordinances in place that restrict the hours that this can happen. And we want to encourage our developers to be thinking of their neighbors. When I go through life, I try to think about others before myself, how I put myself in their shoes and look at the situation from their side. And I think that we want to encourage our developers to think about the neighbors that they're working with.
Thank you. Pam?
As I mentioned earlier, there is a comprehensive plan that we have to follow. That plan includes the opinions and the results of working with outside agencies. We need to have developers that we can work with, and we want to invite them to work with us so that we can maintain our high standards. As far as the noise goes, it is what it is. It's not going to last forever, and that's all part of growth in the community. There are ordinances in place, and if there is a special concern, it's something that should be brought to the city staff, which will look into it, and by due process, it will be looked at and taken care of.
Thank you. The next question, we're going to start with Pam. This question has to do with a particular citizen, but the actual question is, how would you help citizens resolve an assessment issue if, for example, a citizen has a question on something that they've been assessed and they're not understanding it, or they don't feel they have a resolution? How would you help citizens resolve the assessment issues?
I think the problems such as that first need to go to our city staff. The city staff are experts, and they know what they're doing, and they are able to help you, and they're close to the issues at hand. If they are unable to help and they need further assistance of the city council, it should be brought to the city council meeting. At that point, they could bring it in to be persons to be heard within their 3 minutes, and we will work on a solution to balance whatever is right for the citizen and work what's best with the city.
Thank you. Tyler?
City council acts as liaisons between residents and staff. In my opening speech, one of the things that I promised was clear communication with city staff and residents and vice versa. I encourage anybody to, if they have a problem, send me an email. I'll work with the staff and try to get clear understanding of why it is. And if you don't think there should be an assessment and there's a legitimate reason, I think common sense will dictate that you shouldn't be assessed.
Thank you. Patricia?
Well, I would, as it's been stated, that needs to start with the city staff. They're the ones that have the expertise on the topics, and then they also have access to talking to other staff members within other cities to see how issues have been resolved or what are the options on this. I would possibly follow up with the city staff to see if they've gotten back to that resident and if they're comfortable with the answer or if it's been resolved. Also, I think we would need to look at it on how it applies globally. Is it a one-person issue, or is it a larger issue for our residents, and take all of that into consideration?
Thank you. Sylvia?
Well, I try to find out more about the particular assessment, putting the resident in contact with the city staff and then with the city council, hopefully coming to a resolution, maybe having us all sit down together and see if it can be resolved, and to everyone's satisfaction.
Thank you. The next question, we're going to start with Patricia. What is your definition of ethics, and how will your campaign, or how has your record reflected that definition?
Let's see. Well, I think it's important for anyone in a position of leadership to conduct themselves ethically. Some of you are probably familiar with the phrase, and I'll paraphrase, that persons in positions of leadership are held to a higher degree of accountability. And I firmly believe that you should be. And if I was serving on the council and the situation presented itself where I needed to disclose my emails or voicemail messages, I would do so willingly, because I would just feel confident that there wouldn't be anything in there that would compromise my ethics or integrity.
Thank you. Pam?
Honesty, integrity, ownership, accountability. These things bring integrity and into my campaign. It also comes from owning my own business and working in the corporate world. If I didn't have the ethics that I have, I would not have been in business for 11 years. All of those key points earn trust. And trust is the most important thing that we need to get back into the city council so that we can have a healthy community again.
Thank you, Sylvia.
My definition of ethics is being honest, knowing what the rules are, and abiding by those rules in an honest and upfront manner. Open communication, carrying myself in an ethical way, in a responsible way, and in a leadership way.
Thank you. Tyler?
I could be making this up, but I think ethics is related to ethos, which is a person's character. And a person's character, basically, it's the moral character of the person. And I am hardworking, open, and honest. I will always do that. I don't have skeletons in my closet, at least that I know of. And so it's important that our leaders do conduct themselves with proper ethics as they go about their work.
Thank you. The next question, we're going to start with Sylvia. What is the one most important change that should be made to current city government, if any?
Well, I don't know if there should be a change made. I do think that a different mindset, kind of a fresh set of eyes, someone who isn't tainted by the council that we've had in the last 8 years, and maybe tainted isn't the correct word, because I think both councils have done a good job with the city. The city of Minnetrista, as I said earlier, when you look at other cities, we really don't have serious issues. We do have issues that we need to address, our water issues, our concerns, our communication with the citizens of Minnetrista. But we have a healthy city, and we have a healthy government. There are just certain areas that maybe we can tweak and do a little better in.
Tyler?
I agree with Sylvia. I think that for the most part, we do have a really well-run city. The most important change to city government, I think, would be better communication between residents and their councilors. And so that's what I'll attempt to pursue if I'm on the council.
City council needs to be run like a business. It needs to have a long-term plan. It needs to use their staff for their expertise. It needs to listen to the residents and get their concerns and their voices considered for the resolve of a concern or an issue. By following these rules and these tasks, we will treat the business or the city council like a business. This room has become a theater, and it needs to come back to being a business operation.
Thank you. Patricia?
As far as changes to the current city government, I know it has been suggested just recently to change the mayoral term to 2 years. I am not in favor of that. That's not enough time for anybody to come up to speed and be effective. Plus, it doesn't give our city the sustainability that it needs or is valuable. To tie the ethics question previously into this, as far as our campaigns are concerned, I would make sure that the council and the mayor are serving ethically, and that starts with myself. I mean, leadership starts with yourself. And make sure that they're serving ethically and that no decisions are being based on who supported my campaign.
The next question, we're going to start with Pam. Give an example of how you facilitated consensus when parties have had different opinions.
Working in the business world and owning my business for 11 years, I do this all the time. It starts with the common denominator. and you work with all the opinions that are around the table. You work through that common denominator until you reach the goal and have a plan that works for everybody. Will there be compromises? Absolutely. But to reach a goal, you've got to work together, and that's it.
Thank you. Patricia?
As far as facilitating consensus on different opinions, I also would start with what do we have in common? And as a council member, the very base of what you boil it down to is we are here to serve all of the residents of Minnetrista. So starting with what's in common, and then I would have as a practice that we can disagree, but we don't need to be disagreeable. Let's be constructive about finding a solution here. Utilize the information that the city staff provides. If there's not enough, then ask them for more clarification or to come back and let's discuss it again at the next council meeting. And then at some point, the council takes a vote.
Thank you. Sylvia?
Finding a solution that works for everyone and going in, realizing and making sure that everyone going in realizes that everyone may not agree, but we can definitely find a resolution that works for everyone. You may not agree with the resolution, but you will agree that this does work for me. I can handle this. If we do it this way, I'm okay with it. I'll vote for this. So just finding a resolution that works for everyone and helping everyone realize that it will benefit them in the long run.
Thank you. Tyler?
In the investment world, working with investment committees, we have to form consensus or figure out a different idea. And one of the keys to forming consensus is making sure that there's clear communication. Oftentimes when there's a heated debate, people will start talking past each other. Definitions will switch, so someone will be talking about something with one definition and someone else thinks it's talking about another. And so it's important to ensure that all the terms are the same, that there's clear communication between all parties involved. And if there still exists disagreement, it's important to get to the root of the disagreement, to find out where exactly the problem is that they disagree with, and then figure out if there's a solution working together with them.
Thank you. And this is going to be our final question. We're going to start with Tyler. Is there an issue that has not been discussed that you would like to talk about?
The open-ended end question. I can't think of a new issue, but I do want to go back to the water issue because that has been a big issue for our town. And I'm a numbers guy, and so when I look at the project, I like to look at the numbers. Over the next 5 years, we have over 1,000 homes slated. This year alone, as Mark referred to, we've already had 80 new permits pulled. If we're able to capture just 30% of that growth, that's our 75 user mark. And I like that Brian is conservative. I like conservative projection. I like having a margin of error in our models. And so that's important. And I also want to echo that what Mark said earlier about the revenue bond portion. In the finance industry, I have to study bonds, and the revenue bonds must be paid by the revenue stream. There is a general obligation part, as I hope someone will mention, but I have 15 seconds, so I can't get there.
Thank you. Sylvia? Is there an issue that has not been discussed that you would like to talk about?
I can't say that there's an issue that has not been discussed, and this was also mentioned, but just what a great city Minnetrista is, in that we have issues, but we don't have serious problems that can't be resolved. Because of the way our city is run and our government, I think is what it has, along with our open areas, is the reason why we stay. It's the reason why we've moved here, and it's the reason why we stay. And I just think that I know that we can work together as a council and as residents of the city of Minnetrista.
Thank you. Patricia?
I would like to share my long-range vision for Minnetrista. I see our infrastructure issues behind us, and we are now managing them on a proactive basis. Our city council members are conducting themselves in an ethical manner, and trustworthiness in Minnetrista's reputation has been restored. We've maintained our AA+ bond rating, and we've improved our finances so we now qualify for matching grants. We have grown together as a community. We gather together for events at the large community park, and we also run into each other at the coffee shop and restaurant that have been built in the commercial land on Highway 7. And lastly, our city will have grown. Through this growth, and by having been good stewards along the way, the residents of Minnetrista will have an even better sense of community, and we will have retained that rural feel.
Thank you. Pam?
I'm going to end on a positive note as well. My vision for Minnetrista is that we maintain the character and charm that we all love about our city. We need to balance the growth, and we are going to do that by long-term planning, listening to our citizens, using the staff and their knowledge, having some constructive energy. We need to treat this city council as a business. If we do these tasks, we will set the examples for all cities in Minnetrista. And how cool will that be when other cities that have the problems we had coming to us to help them with their problems?
Thank you. This concludes the Minnetrista City Council Candidate Forum. Thank you to our audience as well as the participants, Tyler Abens, Sylvia Allen, Pat Mortensen, and Patricia Dole, for being here at this recorded program. Please check the City of Minnetrista's website for replay. The candidates will be available in the lobby for a short time to answer further questions. Thank you to Deborah Price, President, for organizing this event. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, Wayzata Plymouth area members for helping with this event. Thank you also to the students who couldn't have done it without you. Thank you for your assistance, West Tonka students. Thank you to the City of Minnetrista for allowing us to use of the City Council chambers, and to Isaac Lee for recording the forum. Please remember to vote on Tuesday, November 4th from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Once again, thank you for coming. We encourage our members as individuals as we encourage each of you to get involved in your community and the political party of your choice. The League of Women Voters welcomes new members, both men and women. Please visit our membership table in the entry area. I would also like to inform you of the following upcoming forums: the Hennepin County Judges, October 22nd at the Golden Valley City Hall. Secretary of State candidates, October 28th at Augsburg College. Both forums are sponsored by the League of Women Voters and begin at 7 p.m. Thank you so much for coming tonight.